breaking news today in the Ellen Greenberg case. Now, we've covered this here on Courtroom Insider. Ellen Greenberg is the teacher who back in 2011 was found dead in her Philadelphia apartment with 20 stab wounds. Remember this? She's 27-year-old teacher. It was a blizzard. She was cooking something or had just purchased ingredients for something when her boyfriend says he went to work out, went back to the apartment, like work out there in the building, in the facility, went back to the apartment and couldn't get in because the security door latch had closed from the inside. One of those that you can't lock from the outside. Once the police arrived, they determined, an autopsy determined that she had been stabbed 20 times, including in the neck, back, head, heart. 11 bruises all over her body in various stages of healing, and the knife was found protruding from her chest. I spoke with Nancy Grace a few weeks ago about this. She spoke about this at CrimeCon, and this is what Nancy said at the time about the case.
So Ellen has her master's degree, super smart, and she was teaching first grade. Her dream job. That's what she wanted to do. That day, Nate, a blizzard set in. This is in Philly, a fancy suburb of Philly. So all the children had to go home early. She was not expected home to the apartment she shared with her fiance that she believed was Mr. Wright. But she came home early and she spent, I don't know how long, calling every single parent to make sure that their children got home. She had stopped on the way to fill up her tank of gas for if she needed to, in case she needed to leave for some reason and couldn't get to the gas station. She came home and started making a giant fruit salad for lunch. The fiance comes home. Then he comes to the apartment. Then he leaves to go downstairs to the workout club in the building. He works out for about 45 minutes, Nate, and then comes back up. He says when he comes up, he has to break down the door to get in, that it's locked from the inside. Of course, all that evidence is destroyed, when you break down a door, evidence that it was locked or not locked is destroyed, obviously. But he comes in and immediately sees Ellen lying. Actually, more correctly, sitting up. Her bottom is on the kitchen floor. Her legs are splayed out in front of her, and she's leaning back against the kitchen cabinet, Nate. She's dead. In those 45 minutes, someone has come into the apartment and murdered her. But police think in those 45 minutes, or at least they say it, that in just 45 minutes, she says, you know what, forget the fruit salad, forget the save the dates I've just sent out for my wedding with the venue book, the band book, the food selected, the dress bought. I have a beautiful picture of her in her wedding dress. It was going to be a big shindig, and she was so excited. But in the middle of the fruit salad, she goes to, hey, with that, I'm just going to kill myself. Then here's the kicker, Nate. She stabs herself 20 times, Nate, including, wait for it, 10 times to the back of the head, the back of the neck, including one wound so severe, the back of her neck slices her own dura, D delta URA, the protective sheath surrounding her spine. But yet, miraculously, even slicing her own dura, she continues to stab herself 10 more times?
Yeah.
The medical examiner, and this is attached at the back of the book, Nate, says that at least, and this has been looked at by many experts that say one of the wounds, at least one, was administered post-mortem after her heart quit beating. There is no way she did this. Number one, you're married, you have a wife, you have a daughter. A lot of times women can't even zip a zipper on a fancy dress, right? And she stabbed herself 10 times in the back and kept stabbing. And Nate, and she's right-handed, In her left hand, Nate, she's still holding a pristine white dish towel. So
Mm.
she stabbed herself holding the dish towel. And Nate, one more thing. In the book, you will hear about the wrong way blood. As I told you, she's sitting up, slumped against the cabinets like I'm doing right now. I did a reenact with our friend Joseph Scott Morgan, professor of forensics. She's sitting up, but blood, Nate, do it with me. Use your right index finger. Blood was dried from her nose to her ear, perpendicular.
Mm.
Now, again, I'm not a physicist. I was a Shakespearean literature major, but I've heard of Sir Isaac Newton. All right. If she had died that way, the blood would be going down. This proves to me she was lying supine, and the blood trickled down. It coagulated and dried. It had time to do that, dry, and then she was propped back up.
Now, that was a few weeks ago talking with Nancy Grace, who wrote a book about this called What Happened to Ellen? A Miscarriage of Justice. Because here's where the story gets interesting. So the assistant medical examiner at the time, Dr. Marlon Osborne, ruled Ellen's death a homicide. Weeks later, he changed it to suicide after meeting with the Philadelphia police. Once it was changed to suicide, it prevents a criminal investigation from happening because it was a suicide. There was no crime done. All done. Then, and I want to make it clear too, Goldberg's fiance was never a suspect, and he's never been charged with a crime. But for 14 years, her parents, Sandy and Josh Greenberg, have sought to get answers in their daughter's death. They've spent hundreds of thousands of dollars. They hired experts, including a forensic pathologist, a forensic neuropathologist, who found evidence of strangulation, and they believe Ellen's death was staged. The couple gathered over 167,000 signatures asking the city to reopen the case. They filed 2 lawsuits against the medical examiner's office and the city, alleging the investigation was so botched and that there was a cover-up. Well, back in February, the Greenbergs settled the lawsuits, and as part of there was a monetary payment of an undisclosed amount, and city officials agreed to reevaluate her death. Great news. In the meantime, Dr. Osborne, that medical examiner, signed a statement saying he no longer believes that she died by suicide. So, a few weeks ago, ABC released a documentary called Death in Apartment 603, What Happened to Ellen Greenberg, with the parents. It was a 3-part docuseries. It included interviews with her parents, closest friends, experts who detail why they believe that she was murdered. One expert suggested that some of the wounds were inflicted after she had died. So all this comes down to we're waiting for this big decision. Well, on Friday, a 32-page memo came out, a review from the Philadelphia chief medical examiner, Lindsay Simon, who said that they conducted an unbiased review, that all the records have been reviewed, the documentary was reviewed, the private investigator hired by the family was interviewed. But in the end, she said, while the distribution of injuries is admittedly unusual, quote, the fact remains that Ellen would be capable of inflicting these injuries herself, noting she was a young woman suffering from anxiety. Simon writes that, quote, the fiance's DNA was not detected on the knife used to inflict the injuries. There was no evidence of an abusive relationship. There was no signs of any struggle at the scene. And with all of the information considered, it's the opinion of the undersigned that it is best classified as a suicide. All opinions stated in this report are expressed with a reasonable degree of medical certainty. So there's obviously a lot of questions about this. I'm sure her family does not agree with this. And there is a court hearing tomorrow on this very case. So tomorrow on Courtroom Insider, we'll talk about what comes of the court hearing. But once again, Ellen Greenberg case now ruled a suicide. And It's just makes you go, hmm.